friends, my name is Sally. I'm the cake artist and owner of Cake Bee Cakes. I've been making cakes for about 16 years now, and this is my 16th year coming up in 2025, which is crazy. I'm just gonna show you some fun, just simple, easy icing skills I've used that are also cost saving in my opinion, just over me making cakes for that long. I've always done my cake icing this way. This is actually before acrylic just even came out. So I'm going to ice a simple round 6-inch cake, your typical size for a birthday cake. My cakes usually consist of 4 layers of cake, which I actually tort each 6-inch cake in half, and then I fill it with whatever fillings I have. And this one's going to be almond chocolate ganache. Almond cake with chocolate ganache, and I use an Italian meringue buttercream or a Swiss meringue buttercream, whichever is your preference. They're both very similar. They're both meringue based buttercreams, which are, I think, in my opinion, the most stable for wedding cakes and birthday cakes, and they also are not too sweet. The icing is just nice and fluffy and it's hardened very nicely, and they don't crust, so you can take your time icing your cakes without worrying about the crusting of the frosting on your cake. And American buttercream, so I do use American buttercream in between some of my cake layers for popular flavors. Always for the outside of icing my cakes, I will always most likely use the Italian meringue buttercream, just because it's just so much easier to ice. It doesn't pull up crumbs as bad as American buttercream, and it ices perfectly smooth and hard and gives you that nice clean edge that most bakers, I think, are always looking for when they create cakes, when they ice their own cakes. Unless you have one of those cool machines that like spins and like ices it for you, and then you just take it out. It's so cool. I've seen them. They're like these L-shaped machines. Anyways, I use an Italian meringue buttercream. It looks like mayonnaise in a bowl, and I actually also always portion control all my buttercreams, so I know how much I'm using. This is actually a 2.2 quart container, so if I use half of it, I know it's about a quart that I've used on a cake, so that way I can judge my cost and my pricing really well, because I know how much it costs me to make 1 or 2 quarts of buttercream, because I make all my Italian meringue buttercreams in small batches. And so portion sizing them in the same container size helps you estimate all your pricing and your costs very efficiently, because you know how much you've used. So I would always do that, even with like my ganaches. This is a 1 quart container. This is just a typical chocolate ganache, really nice dark chocolate ganache. And then, so we're gonna get icing. Typically when I ice my cakes, I always use a non-slip on my turntable. You want a turntable typically that spins continuously, where you don't have to keep going like this while you're spinning. So I have a really cheap one, and it's quite horrible, like a $10 turntable. This is like a $70 turntable, and this is from Fat Daddy-O, which I love. See how it just consistently spins? I don't have to keep spinning it even when I'm icing it, so I love this turntable. I think the turntable makes a big difference when you're icing cakes, a lot of them, if it continuously spins on its own. This is very heavy. It's probably about 30 pounds or 25 pounds. To hold any heavy duty cakes. I can stack like a 5-6 tier cake on this thing and it will not collapse or anything. So typically when I ice cakes, I always like to start with my base cake board. I just take any cake board that's bigger than the one I'm icing. So for example, if I want to ice a 6-inch cake, this is a 6-inch board. I have this, and it's bigger than this, so it gives me that ledge that I need to ice, and I follow the edge to give me that smooth, clean edge on the side of the cake. Or a 7-inch, because see, if you put the 7-inch on the 8-inch, or here, this is a better example, see how it's bigger than that? It's just when you're icing, you have this small little ledge to ice, so you have less space to work with. If you're not so good at icing, I'd recommend going another board up. So for the 6-inch, I always use an 8-inch. So for example, see when I line it up, there is actually all this extra space for you to ice, put your icer and scraper in for icing to collect on the edge so that you can scrape it off. So what I'll always do is cover it in plastic wrap, which is the cheapest way to make a waterproof kind of board, so that you can just rip this off after you ice and redo the plastic wrap, or you can just wipe it clean and reuse it. This is like the cheapest way to get like a base board to help you ice your cakes. Just using another board that's bigger of the size. This is an 8-inch, this is a 6-inch. So if I were to ice the 6-inch, see how it's like bigger? So what I do is I actually use an 8-inch board, and I used this 6.6525 acrylic board, which is slightly bigger than my 6-inch board, so that I have extra icing so that you don't see the cake through the edge of the icing when you're icing. So you'll understand once I start icing to see this, because if you don't have enough thickness of the icing on the edge of your cake, you will kind of see your cake through the buttercream, especially on chocolate cake. On white cakes, barely you will see it. If you do a good job putting the filling in, you won't see it. But most of the time you want to have enough of like a thickness on the edge so that your cakes don't show through the icing. Because this buttercream is so light, it's like a light pale ivory. This is how Italian meringue buttercream will always look. It won't be stark white because you actually use fresh butter in it, so it will have a light tinge of the butter. So you can't get rid of that. You can't even lighten it with food coloring, which I used to try, and it would not be stark white. So if you want that stark white icing, you have to either use fondant or an American-based buttercream with shortening, which is super gross in my opinion, because shortening is not very good for you. But I love this buttercream. It's stable, it's great, it's perfect for wedding cakes. It's not too sweet. And so what I do is I put the 8-inch board down. This is my 8-inch. See how I've taped up the back with the plastic wrap? I put this down on my non-slip. You want to put another non-slip. So I will buy non-slips that are cut perfectly, like these circles here, that are super grippy. You want super grippy, because I have ones I cut from these and they're not as grippy. I cut the corners off, see that? And that helps. So I cut them to size for like my cakes. So you always want this grippy smaller than the board that you're using. So for example, I'm using this acrylic board. See how this grippy is small and in between the acrylic, which is perfect. So I put this down on my board here. Then I layer it with acrylic as my base because I want the diameter of the cake to be the circumference of my acrylic board, which is a little wider than your cake board. And for me, when I do it, I have very little workspace because I've done it so much that I can scrape pretty well. So this is how I end up lining them all up. So I have this base, a non-stick, then I have my acrylic, then another non-stick, and then my 6-inch board on top. So you can kind of see how the acrylic is right on the edge. It gives me just enough icing to cover the cake. I know, it's kind of very hard to see. All right. And I'll probably walk forward. So see how I have that? And so what I do is I actually line it like this, and I get my acrylic right lined up like this on my board. See the little ledge? This is perfectly enough icing for me. You could get a 6.5-inch acrylic. They sell these off Cake Safe, which are great. I love them, and they give you just enough space to have extra icing so that your cake doesn't show through. So this is how I ice all my cakes. All right, so now we're gonna get started. This may shift a little, but you just gotta kind of like guide it gently once it's on here. Actually, that one's not grippy enough. I'm gonna switch to a grippier one. So I have these grippier ones like that, which I'm gonna put here. Okay, perfect. Yay. So now you're just gonna put a little bit of buttercream on your board to hold your cake down. You wanna smooth that down like that. And then I think I'm gonna move my angle so you can see better. All right. So I've got my board iced with buttercream like that. Then you're going to take one of your cakes, which I always wrap in plastic, and plop it down. I used to trim the edges of my cake without the acrylic. So if you don't have the acrylic disc, you can absolutely ice a cake directly on the other board without the acrylic. But the thing is, you will have to trim your cake so that it goes in a little from the edge of this cake board. So you're kind of wasting a lot of cake. But if you have too much burning or just too much browning on the edge of the cake, you can absolutely trim it off, and it'll work this way too. You just have to trim the cake a little bit in from the edge of the board so that it's like kind of right here on this edge. Okay? And if you don't have a convection oven, that tends to be the case. You do have to trim. So then I take this, I smash it down on the top of this cake. Here we go, and I've got this lined up. So see, sometimes if you have too much browning, you could trim that away. I may just trim some here because I have some unevenness right here. And with the unevenness, I will just trim that edge away from it, which is great. All right, so I have my smoothers. So I usually use this long edge smoother if I have a really tall cake, or the 5-inch smoother, which if I have a low cake. I always end up cleaning the top with this, which I love, and then I'll do the edges with the long spatula thing. an icing spatula. That's what they're called. So you want to get a torting knife. I've torted for years using a serrated knife. I love it. I think it's the cleanest versus having the wire thingy that you shake through. A leveler, I don't trust those actually. You have a lot of unevenness when you do that. So the easiest way to tort a cake is, if you don't want to touch the sticky part of the cake, you can also use a piece of saran and just hold it on the top like this. Hold it on the top like this. And then you just hold yours, and you always stay in the middle, and you just slowly turn and continue throughout the cake, kind of like you're slicing a bagel, but you're slicing a cake, and this is exactly the same concept for slicing bagels. And you just continue all the way through until you come through, and your cake will go right through. And just watch out when you swipe through that you don't hit your hand here, right here, right here. Okay. You just go slowly, and it comes out perfect every time. See how perfect that layer is? And my tops are usually really moist and sticky, so I always put the saran wrap on top. All right, and so that's perfect. You can clean up crumbs. I'm like kind of a crumb freak, where I like to clean up my crumbs from the edge. And what I actually do is put this here, and I open up my saran wrap and salvage the crumbs that are coming out onto here. Okay, so you do want to clean off the crumbs a little so you don't get that in your icing later when you're smoothing. Okay. All right, so then I just make sure the layers are level. I move this layer off temporarily. I actually have to trim off this edge piece right here that's bothering me a little bit. And you trim on your saran wrap or whatnot. So I just trimmed off some of this edge a little bit, just to clean it up a little. And then this one's pretty good, I think. You can also clean off with a toothpick. That's normally what I do. So you can trim off some of the edge if you feel like too much brown is showing through. So I'll just trim off a little bit of it, just to clean it up so that I don't have too much dark colors, because that will show through the buttercream, especially chocolate cake. Chocolate cake's the one I'm always worried about. White cakes are usually easier. This one's almond, so I'm gonna grab a toothpick. So usually with all the crumbs, I like clean off the crumbs so that it doesn't get my icing when I'm icing later. I like to clean up the crumbs from between the layers of the cake and just swoop it off onto the side. Okay, because you can dust the crumbs out later. Off your other board. I just get it off my acrylic and my cake board. So I can. Okay, there we go. So I have my cake ready like this, like so. And then what I do is I get a piping bag. I will fill it with the buttercream and make a border edge so that any type of filling I have does not ooze out of the side of the cake. So you always want to pipe a ring around the edge of the cake so that you don't have filling or icing coming out of it. I find that it actually helps to do that even when you have buttercreams, because buttercreams are less likely to ooze out because they're firmer. But I just like, it's just a fail-safe way to make sure your filling does not ooze out of the edge. So I get a piping bag, fit it with like a normal star tip or circle tip, and then all right guys, I moved you closer so you can see how I actually ice the cake. Because what happens, icing the cake is like very, very important for you to see up close. So because this is a white cake and I'm doing it buttercream, I have to have the buttercream on the exterior. That's why I'm using the acrylic disc, so that I have extra buffer thickness of the icing being a little thicker, so that it doesn't see through. I have my cake wash in a little squeezy bottle like this, so that I can easily apply it to the cake by squeezing onto the board like so. Can you guys see how it's like really nice, and it just has 5 little holes, and all of the cake wash just comes out, and it makes your cake super moist. I just have a simple, this is just plain sugar cake wash. I have a lemon one that I use for all my fruit flavored cakes. All right, so that's done. Now you're gonna take your buttercream that you've prepared in a piping bag like this, and you're gonna pipe a ring around the cake so that the ganache does not ooze out, and I actually do 2. I do 2 rings. I do a double layer ring just to make sure it doesn't ooze out. All right, so you're gonna put that back here. Then I'm gonna get my ganache, yummy, yummy ganache, which I've softened a little. You don't want it super melty or it will ooze out. You want it thick enough that you can, it's like a thick paste. Okay, so I usually give it like a 10-second pop in the microwave or a 20-second pop. All right, so you've got the ganache here. All right, and then you're gonna take this spatula and you're just gonna gently spread out your ganache. All right, and that's pretty good. I don't wanna squeeze too hard and you don't wanna press down when you put the top layer on. So that's good. Then I'm gonna take my other cake layer and I'm gonna pop it right on top. There we go. Perfect. Then you repeat with this one. Same thing, cake wash. It will be harder to absorb on the top layer because this is already moist and it's got kind of like a layer that you kind of need to spread it a little. Okay. Same thing. Pipe your ring around the cake. I actually, like I said, do a double just in case so that there's no oozing out. And you take a little bit of this ganache, spread it in there. And you kind of have to just wait for the cake wash to absorb. It takes a while for it to absorb on this side, but that's okay. You can still continue icing the cake, no problem, as long as you pipe that ring. Because the ring of icing holds in your filling. Otherwise, it will ooze out the edge. So when I first started making cakes, I would put lemon curd straight on and I'd be like, why is the lemon curd oozing out of the edge? And I realized it's because there's no icing to hold it in. So you want to use whatever icing you're icing the outside of the cake with to hold in whatever filling from oozing out. So I learned that after a few wedding cakes and realized that the lemon curd was like always oozing out, that I had to pipe a ring. So here we go. We've got the ring in here. You've got a ring of icing in the cake. Then we're gonna tort this one. So what you do is you just gently move this one off, and I just tort my extra cake tier in the saran wrap. And then it's all ready to go. And both of my cakes came out pretty level because I have a convection oven. But if you don't, you just trim off the top and then you're all set to go. You can just tort off the top. The top torting is actually harder in the sense you want to make sure you don't slice off your hand or anything. So I just gently tort. See how the saran wrap's getting caught on the thing? And then it's pretty much all the way through, and that's it. I always put saran on top so that it doesn't stick to my hand so much. All right, so you're gonna take this layer down. Oh, actually, what am I doing? You're gonna take both of these down. And when you make cakes, you always want the most even sides, which is the bottom of the cake at the bottom of the board and the bottom of the cake on the top of the cake. So that's why when you tort the cake, you want to stick this bumpier side or one that's not as level down this way. Okay, so you just gently make sure that's level. So you always want to do the two sides tops of the actual cakes where you actually tort it off if there was a bump on the inside of the layers. And then you have the bottom of this extra cake at the top. So then you're gonna flip this way and then leave with that. So you'll see when I do that. Okay. See, this cake stand just keeps spinning. I love it. You have to get the cake turntable. Makes a big difference when it comes to your cake icing. Don't cheap out and get the cheap turntable. It's horrible. I promise you. This makes your life 100 times better. All right. So now I'm gonna pipe my last. I don't like wiping my hands on them or getting my sticky hands on the piping bag because then I have to grip it 5 times and then it's slippery. Okay. All right, last ring. So you're gonna draw your last ring around the cake like so. For any ganache filling, see the nice ring. And it's okay because, like I said, Italian meringue doesn't crust over, so you don't have to worry about this hardening while you're working on it. because American buttercream, I know you gotta work fast or it starts to get crusty, especially if you have like a really high powdered sugar content icing, which is not ideal for smoothing cake icing on the outside, which is not fun. All right, so you've got the chocolate ganache lined up here. Get my icing spatula thing. And that's it. That's all my layers of ganache in. So this is almond with chocolate ganache. It's gonna be super tasty, I promise. It's like one of my favorite combinations, like a tricolor cookie. All right, then you go and then you take your last layer of your cake, this one right here, and literally you take it up like this, and then you flip it gently over. And you don't want to push, you just want to make sure it's actually just stuck on there. You don't want to push down. Like a lot of people when they ice cakes, like especially when I teach kids, they want to push down on it. And you don't want to push down. Okay, because that just makes all the stuff ooze out. All right, so everything looks great in the sense that it's layered pretty well. You want to make sure you have no like oozing, like there's a little bit where chocolate ganache, but we're going to start icing the cake, so we're going to be good. If you want to make your cake extra moist, you can add another layer of cake wash on the top, just to make sure your cakes are super moist. And then what I do at this point, wrap up my saran wrap, move my buttercream over so I can work with that. So I've got my buttercream right here. This is an Italian meringue buttercream. The consistency you want is kind of like mayonnaise texture. So you do want to soften it. So sometimes when it sits for a while in cold temperatures, like right now when it's winter, my buttercream will actually harden on the counter. So I actually have to pop them in the microwave for shots of 10 seconds or 20 seconds to soften it, and then stir it till it's like mayonnaise consistency like this. See that? You want that consistency. Okay, perfect. So now I'm gonna dollop on top. Usually do 2 nice dollops, and you just gently press. And this icing is so nice and smooth, it will not pull away on the cake like an American buttercream does, so you don't have to worry about getting too much crumbs. If you do get crumbs, it's like very minimal. All right, so now I'm just gonna ice. So a lot of times while I'm icing, you want to start in the middle flatter and then kind of get to the edge, and I just do that. So then I never get my edge perfectly smooth with one of these spatulas. I don't know. I just feel like you get a much cleaner look with the icing spatula thing, which is this one. So I love this one because I get a perfectly smooth edge with this. So I always do this. You don't have to worry about it too much because it's not gonna crust over. You don't have to get it perfect in the beginning because you'll come back to it after you do the edges. So I just try to get it pretty smooth just in the middle, and that you want the icing hanging off a little bit. And then you're gonna ice the edges. So you can use a piping bag to pipe all this around the edges if you like. Or what I've done for years, because back then they didn't have such fancy cake gear as they do now, I just would take a spoon and just gently, slowly apply my buttercream, starting from the left and starting from here and then going to the left all the way around. And so I've done this for years like this. I haven't really changed it. It's just something I feel comfortable because the spoon kind of catches the icing. But a quicker, faster way definitely probably would be to jam that in a piping bag and just pipe the edges with icing. But because I've done this so long, I can do this pretty fast that I don't need to worry about it so much. So I just keep doing that, and it's not really gonna pull any crumbs because this cake icing just doesn't do that. Not like an American. An American, if you were to pull away like right now, all that cake would come with you. Because this is so light and fluffy, it's not gonna do that. It's not dense and sticky. And so I just continue doing this all the way throughout the cake on a nice 6-inch, like so. And we will be almost done. So quick. Afterwards, you get your smooth icing spatula and you clean up the edge, and that's it. So this doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to get enough of a layer of icing on there for you to run your icing spatula across later smooth. And so I just keep doing that. Actually, I think I'm going to change the camera angle so you guys can see a little better. I'm going to bring it down a little bit here so you can see better here. All right. All right, so see how I'm almost at the end? Actually, I'm gonna try to move this so you guys can see better. So when I come to the end, it's so easy to clean up. You just wanna add enough icing here. And on the top, and you just gently push downwards till you get to the edge. And you just make sure you don't touch the icing with the cake without some icing on your spatula. Alright, so that's it, pretty much. And you've got your cake right here. It's okay that it's bumpy because you're going to smooth it out now. You just want to make sure you have enough icing on the cake because you can always scrape away excess. You can always scrape away the excess, but if you don't put enough, you will be scraping cake, so you don't want that. So I just go through and make sure I have enough on here. Alright, perfect. So I put my thing back into my bowl because I have containers because I like that so that I can put my spoon and my spatula in the containers. And see how this spatula right here is not tall enough? It's actually short by like a ½ inch. So now I know I have to use this one. So I use my tall one. And the key to icing is you want to lean your spatula kind of flat towards you versus going like this because you're not a machine. You can't hold it perfectly perpendicular, but you can hold it definitely like this. See how you've got that little crease right here? I just hold it. You don't want to push down like this. You don't want to push down like this on the cake. You want to keep it level and towards yourself. And that's the best way to ice. And you just keep spinning this continuously. See how my board will keep spinning even though I'm mostly not even spinning it anymore? You want a board that keeps kind of continuously spinning to your advantage. Okay. So then I just do this until I get it. And if you have pockets where you don't have icing, you don't want to push so hard that it's taking away the icing either. You just want enough for you to get, see that little ledge right there to scrape off. And this one you don't even have to push hard, you just have to be gentle. You just have to hold it firmly in place. So anything else that I've scraped off that I need to fix up, I have this dunk right here, so I'm going to add some more here. I have this dunk there, right here, and this hole right here. And that's it. Everything else is pretty smooth. And see how it's, I still have a little spot right here that cake is showing through right there. I just take a toothpick and I pull out that crumb, and that's it. Then you don't have to keep worrying about your whole cake, because you rarely will get crumbs in this cake. So see how it's just one crumb? I just pull that out, then I put some icing back on it just to cover it up. Make sure I get everywhere on the top. You want the cake to kind of be coming over the edge, so like you're gonna have this cool torn edge. I actually have many buttercream cakes that I do with this cool torn edge. It's very popular and in right now because you can always dust the edge with gold, which is really in. So I'm gonna leave this torn edge actually on this cake until after I do the top, and I'll show you how to do a clean edge on the top. All right, so you're gonna go through, hold your spatula at an angle kind of facing yourself where it's kind of like pointed like this, and clean off your edge. And you are using the acrylic as a guide. The acrylic, if you see extra buttercream, that's okay because you're gonna smooth it out using the acrylic. So the acrylic piece is like your guide to smoothing it out. And so you use that bottom acrylic kind of to guide you to make that perfectly circular, smooth edge. Okay. All right, and that's it. I think I'm very happy with this. Generally, if I have any other concerns, I usually clean it up on the top. So now you're gonna try to get your clean edge on the top. So I'm very happy. My edges are very smooth and clean like that, okay? And that's ideally what you want. Now you've got your excess buttercream on the top, which is perfect. I never use this for the small cakes like this because it's just too much and it doesn't grab straight across. So what you want to do to clean the edge is you want to drag your icing spatula to the center and pull away gently so it cleans up all your buttercreams. You can do it with one of these too. So how you want to do that is, I'm going to zoom you in a little so you can see better, is you want to go like this and see how it just pulls away into the center clean. See how that's perfectly clean edge now? And you just swipe off the extra in your container. You can do it with this one too, and swipe it off with the container. Swipe it off with the container. I do it also, so this part I didn't do as clean, but you can do it also with this one, which I love a lot. So I actually go like this. I move in like a angular circular motion like that. See that? And that just gets that clean edge. Then you swipe off extra on your container. That's why I like the containers, because you can just swipe off your icing onto the container like this. See that? Like that. And I have been icing cakes about 15 years like this, but they just started, I just learned these like after like 3 years of making wedding cakes. They only came out with these in like early 2010, 2011, 2012. Before that, everyone pretty much used these to ice their cakes. So see how I pretty much cleaned it off, but I do have a couple little holes right here. I will just stick more icing back here to kind of clean it up. You just want to make sure you have it level so you can look at it eye level and see, and I will add back more just to make sure I have it level, because sometimes you'll take away a little too much on the edge. So what I just do is I go through, I spin my cake like so, I do this to get that edge again. All right, and then you're gonna go through and you're gonna clean your edges. Perfect. So I'm gonna clean that. Okay, that's the air bubbles. Once you smooth over it, the air bubbles will go away. Because this icing has some air pockets. But the more you smooth it, just the air bubbles go away. So you're good. So that's how you get a perfectly smooth cake. Sorry, I'm just cleaning up this with the edges. Okay, and that's it. That's how you get a perfectly smooth, clean edge cake. I got a little bit up here too. All right, and that's if you want a clean edge. So if you're doing like a perfectly smooth, clean edge cake, and you're about to cover this cake in fondant, then this is perfect for you right now, the smooth edge cake, because now your cake is ready to go. You'll be able to refrigerate it. You're gonna refrigerate it till this is hard, and then you're gonna put your fondant over it. Yay!
3 hours later.
Cake, and it's all set to go smooth. It's got smooth top, smooth edges. All right guys, so now my cake is hardened, and you see I'm gonna have to separate this acrylic disc. What you're gonna wanna do is take a paring knife, really nice sharp edge, and you're gonna run it along the bottom of your acrylic to loosen the cake up. All right, so now your cake is loosened and separated from this acrylic edge, as you can see right here. Then you're gonna take a piece of paper towel, because this works the best on this type of buttercream cake. You can't do it with American because it'll put imprints on it, but the Italian meringue or Swiss meringue dries hard, or it firms up very hard that you can actually move it and touch the surface. So what I actually do is I have a board ready. I've drawn a circle around the edge of this, see that? And then I've put duct tape. And this is actually how I do all my boards, even the wedding cakes. And I literally just grab the cake like so. See how it moves off? It's perfectly separated. And I line it up on the edge of this. I move this off. I line it up on my board, ready to go, as you can see right here. Now it's perfectly clean and smooth. And sometimes if I misjudge the little, I'll realign. And you can just clean up the edge like this by running your finger along the edge. If any of the buttercream starts to stick out, you can actually use a piping bag and pipe the edge to close up any gaps. And then you peel off this. See how it's still perfect? No dents anywhere, really. And that is how you ice a birthday cake like so. See how perfect that is right there? All right, and then now you can do any type of decorations you have planned for it, piping, vintage, or painted buttercream or whatnot, and this is it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye!